All right. Thanks everyone for joining the Future Proof podcast. My name is Alex. I am joined here for Darek Hahn. He is the CEO of Affinity MSP. They are a IT company based in New Jersey. Thank you much, Darek, for joining me. Yeah. So real quick, maybe why don't you go into really what sets yourselves apart on, from every other kind of IT MSP?
Sure. For 5 years from 2016 to 21, and we got the experience. Plus, one of my partners has been in that space since the late 90s, board chair at an IT company in the 90s. So we have all of this legacy experience. And when we formed Affinity, we realized that the big component that misses in most IT companies is the relationship component. It's all about the tech, and everybody talks about the tech, and people get stuck on the tech. And when we sold our company, I watched the company that bought us really flounder because they're into the tech, and they don't realize how important the relationships are. So Affinity is built all about genuine relationships. We're about the relationships with our employees, with our clients, with our partners, that really structuring how we deal with people. I mean, obviously we need to know technology. We need to make sure we're keeping people safe and secure. But at the same time, if an employee leaves, they have the relationship with a client. We need to understand that our team is extremely important. So I think our differentiator really is that our core value is genuine relationships. That's what we're about.
I like that. I mean, at the end of the day, the relationships are the most important thing to your business, because if you don't have the relationships, you don't have a client. And like you said, too, it's even more important for you to have strong relationships and really value and empower your employees, because if they go somewhere and they're the reason why maybe one of your clients is working with you and that client goes with them, and then, well, now you just lost two important pieces of your business.
Yeah. And I think there's a big component of it for me, as far as working internally with my team, is helping everybody understand what a healthy relationship is. It doesn't mean we just roll over and do whatever a client wants. Sometimes we have to challenge them, and vice versa. If we get challenged, we need to be genuine and honest if we make a mistake or any of that kind of stuff. It's really healthy relationships. Like, that's what creates genuineness. I joke with a lot of my clients that I hope I have a good enough relationship with you that I'm at your retirement party, and vice versa.
Yeah.
That's my gauge of if we've created a really healthy relationship.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important. So that's obviously an important piece. What do you think was the other kind of really strong leg in your business, other than relationships and your people? What is in one more kind of, pillar that really sets yourself apart from other MSPs?
So this one's kind of, unfortunately, a bit sad, and most people don't know it who are not in the MSP space, but there's basically two players who do the core systems for the MSP space. Autodesk and ConnectWise, who are like the core ticketing system, the way IT service providers are managed. Well, those systems were built in the early 2000s, and they're still on that legacy technology. They are owned by PE money, so they're not going to redo it and come out with a new version. And so because we started as a new basically a year ago, we were able to use a newer technology. We have a new ticketing platform. We have our own integrated portal for clients to be able to use. All of the systems that we integrate with it are set up with integrations, whereas all of those had to be built on the legacy systems, and they have to fight with the legacy, the way the legacy systems work. And so we get to use the newest and best technology, which is exciting, because I think a lot of MSP providers, especially small ones, have a hard time changing. Once you start, you're going down that road, we're stuck with it for however long you're around. I know some big players.
So you've got the legacy knowledge and the new tech.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, good. All
Yeah,
right,
a good combination. We know what didn't work back in the day.
Yeah, for sure. So, what inspired you to start Affinity? Where did the idea of creating a better relationship-based technology come from?
So, it started when we sold, because we had a plan to buy the previous company. It was Dynamic Strategies was the name, and we called it Velocity. And Velocity, when we sold it after 5 years, which is what our plan was, and a few of us moved on, actually the whole team moved on to the company that acquired us. It was watching how that was managed, and how a lot of PE firms who are buying up a lot of companies in our space manage things. They don't really understand the importance of those relationships. They don't understand the importance of the employees and the tech team, and how important that relationship is to a small business. And so, as we came out of that acquisition and I left, I started saying, one, I wanted to help my team and my clients who were suffering a bit. So we tried to buy the company out, the division out, to see if we could get it structured. They didn't buy into that. And so we went ahead and started Affinity with the idea that, we learned a lot in that experience about the relationships and how important they are and how people need us. Technology, unfortunately, because of the way it's developed over the years, is kind of always put off to the side a little bit. And so trying to get people to make it more part of the business versus something off to the side of the business should
Got
be
it.
part of the
Yeah.
business discussion.
I mean, it sounds like it's a trend with, talking to you and listening to you describe your business and your business model. It's, obviously relationship based, but, how does that approach with onboarding and proactive management differ from a traditional MSP?
Well, one, I will tell you, I hate that word proactive because it's so misused. Yeah, I've seen so many IT providers who claim to be proactive, and then when you get in, you go, "Can I have the documentation or network diagram or something like that?" And they're like, "We don't have it." No, that's
Yeah.
not proactive. The way it differs is that we are focused on being a part of. When you're in a relationship, you're a part of. You're not separate from. And so, being a part of a team, we have a client out on the shore that has two businesses, and we're actively engaged in how they can combine those and work together to create a better synergy within the two businesses, save them money. We're talking at a board level and a management level, not at a IT tech level. Or, a lot of times you get stuck in this business with, the office manager manages the IT provider. And that's always, when you're being set off to the side and it's not going to be a good relationship. And there's always going to be struggles with technology because you're not engaged in the business. So I'm big on, and probably because I'm not a technologist at heart, I did get IT certifications a long time ago, but it's not my core who I am, that I'm more interested in the business than how the business runs. And so a lot of talk we have internally is about how is the business running? Yes, I have technologists and team members who are very focused on how does a PC work and making sure that it's safe and secure, but that's not really how the business runs. Somebody gets their job done and need to understand the difference of the two.
I think that's super important because if an IT MSP company is running differently than you are and not focusing on the relationships or how their business is running, and they're only focused on how the tech is, obviously everyone can provide the tech. That's really not the differentiator. It's how you control your business, how you run your business, and how you, interact with your clients and employees, I think is the most important thing and what's really going to set yourselves apart. So I think that's super powerful for other IT and MSP owners.
Mhm. Sure.
So, going into like industry trends and everything like that. So what do you kind of see evolving in the next 1 to 3 years? Is something going to be really prominent that's not? Is AI going to be taking over? Kind of where is your outlook on the next 1 to 3?
So we just had a meeting today about this because we have a kind of a small team dedicated to um, AI innovation because it is. I always hate when these terms come out because they get all this momentum, which we had for probably a year and a half, where everybody's talking about it coming and coming and coming, and I'm kind of sitting on the sidelines going, "Is it really going to happen?" And
Yeah.
it's happening. It's happening. And the problem for small businesses is most of them, it's just overwhelming because it's moving at such a pace that you can't keep up. And so what we're talking about is trying to create, and I've seen some other MSPs doing the same thing, is really create some education around what is AI, how does it work, simple human language, not tech language, and help some clients just implement small little pieces of it. I always say that the best thing a company could do, most of them, a lot of companies are on Teams, is if you use Copilot and create a simple HR bot that somebody can
Yeah.
go in and say, how do I do an expense report? And it'll give you all the instructions on how to do an expense report, including getting you logged into whatever system you need to get in. How much time would that save if I'm an employee and I need to do an expense report and I haven't learned how? I'm going to send a note to my boss or probably a friend of mine who works with me, then to my boss, then the boss sends me to HR, and then HR has to send me a bunch of documentation, and then they have to get me into the system. I mean, all that time that a AI bot could probably do in seconds, and I just type
Well,
it in the question, right? And
I mean,
think
it's
that
all,
any HR function to me that is so. If you ask where the things are going, is that there's got to be a growth path for the small business because right now the large AI type implementations are happening at the enterprise level. And as we all know, those things take a while for the price to drop enough to where it can get to the mid market and then to the small business. But the small business also needs to be learning as that price is coming down. So when they're ready, they can actually use it. And there's some things structurally that I think small businesses struggle with around data management and things like that that have to be resolved. It's going that way. It's going to be a hard thing for a lot of people to deal with because it's going to impact jobs. I'm not sure how it's going to impact jobs. It may just shift things. People are going to end up, all of the day-to-day routine stuff, I think is going to be gone. I think that's the stuff that AI is going to be able to help reduce cost on.
I think, yeah, I mean, like right now, the best utilization, obviously, there's some really powerful things you can do with AI, but for a small business, using AI to really strengthen or, lower overhead wouldn't be necessarily to get rid of the employees or replace a position. It would be to empower the positions that you have to make them run more efficiently, to get more done during the day. And like you said, just take monotonous back and forth that, wastes 5, 10, 15 minutes of a person's day for one activity to get done in like a millisecond with an AI bot for HR or legal, maybe not some legal stuff, but whatever, like any type of the part of the business that they can really streamline, I think is like huge. So that's really good.
I have a great story about this where talk about a person who's learned how to be efficient. So I'm at a CEO group that I'm a part of, and a
Yeah.
friend of mine says, I'm going to fire my marketing guy. And I know the marketing guy. I'm like, he's really good. Why are you going to fire him? He's like, he's only working 2 hours a day. I'm like, what do you mean he's only working 2 hours a day? He said, yeah, I he works from home. 9 o'clock he logs on, 11 o'clock he logs off, and I don't see him the rest of the day. I try to get a hold of him in the afternoon. I can't get a hold of him. I said, so what is he doing? He said, well, we started tracking him, and he's using AI and doing his job in 2 hours and done. I said, is he doing a good job? And he said, yeah. I said, and you're going to fire the most efficient employee you have. Maybe you should bring him into the office and have him teach everybody else how to use that stuff. And he'd probably
Yeah.
get more out of it. And it made him pause and think about, wow, this is my reaction to somebody doing something that I don't know. Now, there is a problem. That employee was using free ChatGPT, which meant that all their company information was out on the internet. So if you don't know that, if you're listening to this, make sure that you have a company policy around AI that you only use paid for subscriptions, because
Yeah.
your employees are using the free version, whether you know it or not. So you should definitely have a company policy around it.
Well, and also too, I mean, can't, and this is a little more high level or whatever, but most companies you can create or some type of internal LLM or some type of chat where it's all contained inside a server where it's not going to go out. Because even like the chat, I think even like the free version of Chat GPT, I don't think it's like guaranteed to stay in your system. If you're putting in any type of customer sensitive information, that's obviously not a good thing either. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. There's
it's
definitely
definitely,
levels of security as you use it more deeply. I have a large company we used to do business with, and I've been talking to them, and they're talking about doing it, but they will not allow it on the internet. They're not allowing any of their data out. If you do it, you're fired. And
yeah,
they're trying to build something internally because they want to use it, and they're a manufacturing company, so they can significantly use it. But they also understand the danger.
yeah. I mean, you never know. I mean, you got to figure out every single avenue of any type of thing. I mean, for at the end of the day, you guys are, that's the job of what you guys do is to be secure and keep clients secure. So it's at the end, that's like the most important thing. What are you, kind of looking into the next little bit, like how do you think the automations part of AI is going to change? I know that, LLMs and all that things, but are you guys really doing anything with like automations for changing how MSPs deliver?
So we are internally, we're getting ready, probably Q1 next year. I mean, even at this young stage where we're just starting up a new company and we've been around for about a year, and
Yeah.
we've brought on quite a few clients, is we're having this end user portal, and from that end user portal, we're planning to implement AI on, uh, really from a help desk standpoint, so people can try to solve problems themselves. Because a lot of people, especially the younger generation, they just like to have the answer and they'll fix it. Or
Yeah.
if we can create some scripts that will actually fix something if they've got a problem, that's where we see it going in our space. What I like is I have a friend of mine who's really deep into this stuff out in the Midwest, and he describes it as, people need to understand there's two different types of AI. There's administrative AI and there's production type AI. Administrative is create me a PowerPoint for a sales presentation. Help me, the example you used later with an expense report. How do I do an expense report? All that administrative stuff, which will have a significant impact, and it's easier to implement. And so a lot of people will start implementing that first. Now we're starting to see it come through in production where with it, people being able to manage their own tickets and solve their own issues. Whereas a manufacturing company, it might be around how they produce something and not have to have as many people involved in that production. I was listening to the CEO, the head of Google Gemini. He's based out of London, and he had an interview. If you get a chance to look at it on C Minutes, And he talked about how the interviewer asked him what the next steps for AI was. And he said, it's clearly the merging of AI and robotics. And it's
Yeah.
totally makes sense. And he said, the problem is we don't have any guardrails on it, which is a problem, but we don't need to get into that now. That's
Yeah.
where it's going.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And it's actually kind of scary, but also not. I mean, it's interesting, but like, I mean, I can't imagine where I is going to go in the last like 6 months, how much it's changed to the next like 2 years. I don't even think I can wrap my head around kind of where it's going to go and what the capabilities are going to be. So obviously we could have a 30, 30-hour conversation on that, but that's
Yeah.
just kind of something to really think about. But, for you, with your expertise, starting a couple IT MSP and really, having a lot of value for maybe some a listener that's trying to start out, where do most companies hit bottlenecks in like either the process, the people, or the tech stack when they're starting out new?
And as an MSP, as
Yeah.
an
So if they're
IT
trying to
provider.
start an MSP, where have you found that like a really big focus could be on eliminating bottlenecks of growth?
Well, I would say it's most not understanding themselves. And what I find is most MSPs start from a IT guy who got frustrated working for somebody else. So he started helping his friend's company and that grew into a second person's company. And now he's got a company and he's trying to figure out how to run it, or she. And they're not sales focused. They're not driven by sales. They're not sales people. They don't understand that side of the business. And I've watched a lot of, and actually the company that we acquired, that was the exact example. They won a big contract. They were making $5, $6, $7 million a year, most of it off of one contract, and they were living the life. But they had no sales ability. They really didn't have that driven sales structure. So I would say most struggle with that side of it. And then it's process and structure. Because when you're early, you're playing whack-a-mole and running around 50,000 things in your head. I feel like we're really lucky because everybody that's gotten involved with us, we've all been in this business before. So we all know the process we need to have in place. So we had a call yesterday where I'm doing stuff that I think a small company would probably not do until probably for another 2 years, but we're doing it now because we know where we're going to be. We know where we plan to be. We know that we need that process procedure in place. And while it's small, it's much easier to put that in place than try to add it later. So I would say process and procedure and sales,
Yeah.
which means that the leader has to get out of their own way, which is the hardest thing.
Well, I mean, I think that's with a lot of businesses, not even just MSPs. It's typically someone starting a business because they have a lot of experience and they think they can do it better or faster or cheaper for their clients, but yet they might be only an operator. So they don't really know the back end on how to start a business or a go to market, a marketing strategy or their ICP, anything about really what is the nuts and bolts of creating a business. And
Yeah.
then most of them too don't set their business up like you even alluded to earlier in the podcast, where you guys started the business with an exit strategy of 5 years, knowing
Yeah.
that you were going to sell the business. Well, you probably designed that at the beginning of the business, knowing how you would have to get there to sell it. Most
Mhm.
business owners probably start the business for them, and then they get to 5 years out and they have no way to sell the business because they didn't set the structure up that way to sell it. So I think that's you.
Right. Yeah. It is. I think it is about leadership. And if you haven't done that, it's getting yourself engaged. I'm in a group called Vistage, but there's a few number of those out there. Like getting involved with other leaders that are not in the IT space and
Yeah.
starting to see what it looks like to manage and own a business from the outside, not from the inside, and not from the
Yeah.
tech stack, all that.
But what do you think the biggest myth about IT providers is that you wish business owners would stop believing?
That it's a pain in the butt to change. It is so easy to change right now. They should not be held to somebody that they don't have a great relationship with. Even us. If you don't have a relationship with us, you should move on. And I love one of our last clients we just onboarded said to me, the best part is my team didn't even know I switched to providers.
Yeah.
It's that easy today. And if you are struggling with technology and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a pain in the butt, it's going to take me weeks. I mean, we do it in a week. I mean, for a small business, they'll be done in a week and we'll be onboarded, and it's not that difficult anymore.
I love it. I
That would
love it.
be
Yeah, no, I think that's super important reputation, and that's gonna be a lot worse and a lot more much of a headache than having a week, changeover period.
well, and how much time do you spend when you're not happy in a relationship
Yeah,
thinking about relationships, spending time trying to get them to do things you want them to do. All of that kind of stuff is just, it's wasted time and money.
Okay. If every business owner could do one thing right now to improve their relationship with technology, what would it be?
Bring technology into the leadership team some
Yep.
way. Get technology to be part of the organization, because technology a lot of times is set off to the side. And it's that thing that, I mean, it started this way because CFOs had technology because it was so expensive. They put it under the CFO to control the cost. That's back in the 80s, 90s, right? And it's never been moved. Those companies that have moved it to operations, it's a completely different ballgame because they're using it to grow the business. Whereas if it's under the CFO, it's, yes, we need it, but we're going to minimize the cost as much as possible because it becomes the cost thing. Figure out how
Yep.
to make IT part of the infrastructure of the business, just like if you're manufacturing, it's the conveyor belts. They're important to your business. You want to make sure they work. Make sure IT is that important.
Well, if you guys need help with that, definitely hit up Affinity MSP. Derek, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you? All that good stuff.
Well, the easiest is the Affinity without the Y, MSP.com. That's our website.
Yep.
So affinitymsp.com. You can also look me up on LinkedIn, Affinity MSP, and would love to chat and help any way we can.
Well,
And
awesome.
it's
Thanks
free.
so much for taking on. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with me. And it was a pleasure.
Pleasure, Alex.
All right.
Great
Thank you
spending
so
time
much.
with you.